All right, welcome to another deep dive. This time, we'll be looking at Neville Goddard, specifically his book, The Law and the Promise.
Okay.
Um, you've provided some excerpts from this book for us to take a look at and kind of see what we can extract from it that might be valuable to our listeners.
Yeah.
And the big idea here is that imagining creates reality.
Yeah.
So are you ready to kind of
Absolutely.
dive into that a little bit? And
Yeah. It's definitely more than just wishful thinking, right?
right,
It's
it's not just like
Goddard is talking about a very deliberate practice,
right.
a way of consciously shaping
Make up a
our
way to act.
mental reality
Yeah.
to influence our physical worlds.
Yeah.
Not passive.
Not passive.
Okay.
Very active.
So it's not just daydreaming.
No.
It's something more than that.
Right.
But what does that imagining actually look like?
Well, one of the things that Goddard uses
What does that even mean?
is this compelling analogy of building a stately habitation. Okay.
Right. And he says that it's not enough to just design the blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
We need to actually dwell therein.
Okay.
And he illustrates this with a story about a doctor and his wife who wanted to build an apartment building.
Okay. I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for years, they just dreamed about it, but nothing happened. And it wasn't until they started vividly imagining themselves living in that finished building, interacting with tenants, showing friends around, that things began to change.
So they were like, oh, we want an apartment building, but then they actually started picturing
That's right.
like what it would look like.
Exactly. They even drew up plans, solidifying the image in their minds. They imagined specific conversations. They even pictured a friend, Mrs. X, saying,
oh, wow.
Doctor, I think it's beautiful.
Okay, so they were really putting themselves in there.
Yes.
Like a virtual reality almost.
That's right. The level of detail is crucial here. And the story gets even more interesting.
Oh, does it?
Yeah. Seemingly out of nowhere,
Okay.
a contractor appears, almost inexplicably, driven to help them build this apartment building.
Right.
It's like their consistent, detailed imaginings somehow drew him into their reality.
So that's where it gets a little like, what?
Yeah.
How could it just imagining something so vividly make it happen in the real world?
Well, and I understand the skepticism, right?
Yeah.
But what's intriguing here is that Goddard isn't suggesting that some supernatural force is at work. He's pointing to this idea that our inner world, our imagination, has a much deeper impact on our physical reality than we realize.
Okay.
So it's about understanding
magic.
this creative power that we have within our own minds.
It's more about the power of our own imagination and how that affects things.
Right.
Okay, so it's not wishing on a star. It's recognizing the power of our own, like you said, inner world.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Or whatever.
Percent.
Okay. So Goddard suggests we can even use this power to influence our past through a technique he calls revision. He talks about this woman who received a disappointing letter from a real estate agent.
Yeah.
Instead of accepting it, she mentally revised the letter, imagining the agent being enthusiastic about selling her land.
Right.
Did this mental revision actually change the situation?
Well, she ended up selling her land for a profit.
Wow. Okay.
And Goddard explains this by saying that by revisiting past events and reimagining them as we wish they'd occurred, we can alter the imaginal structure of our past and influence our present and future experiences.
But isn't that kind of like denying reality?
Well, not necessarily.
Like, how do we know,
Right.
what's real if we can just change it in our mind?
Right. And it's not about denying reality. It's more about recognizing that our perception of the past shapes our present.
Okay.
So by consciously choosing how we view past events, we can create a more empowering narrative for ourselves, which can then influence our future.
So it's like choosing to focus on the positive, even in situations that were challenging, and then that kind of helps create a more positive reality going forward.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this ties into Goddard's perspective on moods. He doesn't see moods as just emotional responses to events.
Okay.
He believes that they are powerful imaginal activities that can shape our reality.
So our feelings aren't just reactions. They're active forces.
They're active forces that can shape
It happens
to us,
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And he tells this incredible story of a 55-year-old woman who was struggling in every area of her life, unemployed, financially insecure, feeling hopeless. But she managed to turn everything around by cultivating one specific mood.
Okay, tell me.
What was it?
I have to know.
Isn't it wonderful?
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah.
That's so simple.
Right. Instead of dwelling on her lack,
Yeah.
she immersed herself in the feeling of her desires being fulfilled. She didn't focus on her individual needs, but rather embodied the feeling of already having everything she wanted.
Isn't it wonderful?
Isn't it wonderful?
That's amazing.
And it worked.
Okay.
She manifested a job, a car, an apartment, and financial stability.
She shifted her entire reality.
She shifted her entire reality.
Just by changing her mood.
Simply by choosing to embody a feeling.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is really challenging
Right.
my understanding of how reality works.
It is mind-bending.
It feels almost magical.
Yeah.
But Goddard seems to be grounding this in a deeper understanding of the human mind, and he takes it even further with a very bold statement.
Okay.
He says, there is no fiction.
Wow.
Essentially what he's saying is that everything that we imagine, even what we consider fiction,
Right.
has the potential to manifest in reality.
Okay. Whoa, that's a big claim.
It is.
What evidence does he have for this?
Well, he uses the intriguing example of the Titanic.
Right. Years before the ship's tragic sinking, an author named Morgan Robertson wrote a novel called Futility.
Okay.
This fictional ship was eerily similar to the Titanic in its size, capacity, and even the fact that it didn't have enough lifeboats.
Okay, that is kind of spooky.
Right.
But are you suggesting that Robertson's imagination somehow caused the Titanic to sink?
Well, Goddard isn't saying that Robertson directly caused the tragedy.
Right.
But he is inviting us to consider the possibility that our imaginings, even those that we label as fiction, can have a powerful impact on the world around us.
So if there's no such thing as fiction, then what are we unknowingly creating through our thoughts and beliefs?
Yeah.
That's a pretty profound question to consider.
That's a really good question. It really is. And to help us grasp this concept of creating our own reality, Goddard uses another analogy, the potter from the Bible.
Oh, okay.
You're familiar with that story?
Yeah. But how does that relate to imagining creates reality?
Well, the potter represents our imagination, shaping and molding the clay of our reality.
Okay.
And he shares a story about an artist who used focused imagination to envision her success.
So she was like, I'm going to be a successful artist.
That's right.
And it happened.
She envisioned having a gallery show, receiving commissions, gaining recognition for her work, and incredibly, it all came true.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a powerful example of how we can use our imagination to sculpt our lives into the form we desire.
Yeah, like we're all given this lump of clay.
That's right.
And we can either, mold it into something beautiful.
That's a great way to put it, yeah.
Or just leave it as this shapeless thing.
Yeah, formless.
Yeah.
Right. And Goddard gives us another key concept to help us shape that clay, the moment.
Okay.
He describes it as that flash of time when we imagine things as they ought to be, setting the wheels of creation in motion.
So it's like catching a glimpse of our desired reality and holding on to that vision.
Exactly. He tells a story about a woman who imagined picking up an elderly lady who had missed her bus.
Okay.
Moments later, she found herself in that exact scenario.
Just almost like a premonition, but one that we've created.
Yeah, one that we create.
Through our own imagination.
Through our own imagination. That's a great way to put it.
Okay, so it's not just about having the thought. It's about capturing that feeling.
Right.
And letting it,
That knowing.
Yeah, letting it take root.
Yeah.
And this leads us to a deeper, more mystical layer of Goddard's philosophy.
Yeah.
His own personal experiences and the concept of the birth from above.
Yeah.
This is where things get really intriguing.
Yeah, it is.
Let's explore this further in the next part of our deep dive.
That's good.
Okay, so we're back, and we're ready to keep diving into Neville Goddard's ideas, and it sounds like this imagining thing. It's not just a passive thing.
It's not passive, no.
It's more like a muscle we need to train. Would you say that's...
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. Goddard emphasizes consistent practice and dedicated effort when it comes to harnessing the power of imagination.
So it's not just a one-time thing like, I imagined it, where is it?
Right.
It's more about
shifting our entire mindset, our way of being in the world.
Yeah, like almost like retraining our brains to think a different way.
That's right. He talks about moving from a state of reacting to life's circumstances to a state of acting from the wish fulfilled.
Oh, okay.
Consciously choosing the reality we want to experience.
So that's where those techniques like dwelling therein and revision come in handy, right? Like, precisely. They give us those...
They give us practical tools to bridge the gap between our current reality and the one that we desire.
And remember that story of the artist who wanted to achieve success in her field?
Yeah.
Like, she used those techniques to create a vivid picture of what success would look like.
Absolutely.
And it wasn't just like, oh, I want to be successful.
Right.
It was like...
She got very specific.
Super specific, right.
Absolutely. She imagined herself having a gallery show, receiving commissions, getting recognition for her work.
Right.
And the amazing thing is, it all manifested in her reality.
It's almost as if her focused imaginings acted as a magnet, drawing those opportunities into her life.
Yeah, and it wasn't just about picturing the end result. She felt the emotions, the joy, the satisfaction, as if it were already happening.
Okay.
It's that embodied knowing, that feeling of certainty that seems to be a key ingredient.
This reminds me of the story about the woman who wanted to go on a Caribbean cruise.
Oh, yeah.
Like, she was in the hospital, but she used her imagination to transport herself onto that cruise ship. She spent hours poring over travel brochures, vividly imagining herself on that ship, feeling the warm sun, smelling the salty air, even tasting the delicious food. She created a full-on sensory experience.
So she really tapped into that dwelling therein technique, right? Like,
that's right.
Even though her physical reality was very different, she chose to focus on the reality she wanted.
Exactly. And it worked.
And the results were pretty incredible.
Yeah.
A few months later, she won a contest for a Caribbean cruise on the exact ship she had been imagining. Even the same stateroom she had pictured herself in.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Great.
It's more than just a coincidence.
Yeah, that's more than just a coincidence. It really highlights...
It really highlights how powerful it can be to fully immerse ourselves in the feeling of the wish fulfilled, even when our current circumstances seem far from it.
So we can't just give up when things are tough, right?
That's right. It also emphasizes the importance of paying attention to those seemingly random events that pop up in our lives.
Like what we might consider a coincidence.
Yes, what we might dismiss as coincidence could actually be clues, signposts guiding us toward our desired reality.
It's like the universe is winking at us, you know?
Exactly. And sometimes those wings can be quite loud and clear. Goddard talks about manifesting a financial windfall when his business was struggling.
Okay.
He vividly imagined his office receiving $4,000 unexpectedly and felt the relief and gratitude as if it had already happened.
So he was really putting himself
feeling
in that
reality.
Okay. And did the money just appear?
Well, not quite, but the events that unfolded were strikingly aligned with his imaginal act.
Okay.
Within a few days, he received an unexpected order from a client who, for some reason, decided to pay in advance for the exact amount he had imagined.
So it's not necessarily about controlling every single detail. It's more about like setting the intention and allowing the universe to kind of orchestrate the how.
Precisely. Goddard emphasizes we don't need to force things to happen.
Okay.
We align ourselves with the desired outcome and trust in the power of our imagination to set things in motion.
So it's almost a paradox, isn't it? Like surrendering to the flow of life, but at the same time, actively shaping that flow.
It's a delicate balance to strike.
Right.
But when we find it, the possibilities become truly endless.
Yeah.
It's empowering to realize we're not just victims of circumstance.
Right.
We have the ability to create the life we want.
It's about reclaiming our power and recognizing that we are the author.
We're the authors of our own stories.
Our own stories. And speaking of stories, Goddard recounts another fascinating example that touches upon this idea.
Of subtle threads connecting our inner and outer worlds. The woman who lost her furniture.
Oh, yeah, the one who moved to New York, right.
She had shipped her belongings to New York City, but upon arriving, they were nowhere to be found.
Right, like a nightmare scenario.
Right.
Like that's...
Especially after a big move.
The worst.
It would be so easy to spiral into panic and despair.
Right, right.
So how does she use Goddard's teachings to handle this situation?
Yeah, what does she do?
Instead of giving in to the chaos, she remembered Goddard's teachings.
Okay.
And decided to use her imagination. She sat in her hotel room, closed her eyes, and vividly imagined herself back in her own apartment, surrounded by all her belongings.
So she was dwelling therein.
Yes.
Even though
her physical
reality was totally different.
Was telling her a completely different story.
Yeah.
She chose to focus on the reality she desired.
Right.
Rather than the one that was seemingly being imposed upon her.
Okay.
And the next day, while walking down the street, she bumped into her maid.
What?
Who led her to the place where her furniture had been mistakenly stored.
No way.
It's as if her focused imaginings somehow created a trail, leading her right to her lost items.
It's like our inner world can somehow influence the outer world in these subtle yet profound ways.
And speaking of signals,
yeah.
Goddard tells another story about a woman who wanted to attend a sold-out matinee performance.
Oh, okay.
Instead of giving up, she used her imagination to sleep in the feeling of already being at the performance.
Okay.
Experiencing the excitement, the laughter, the applause.
So she went to bed that night feeling as if she had already seen the show.
Yes, that's such a unique approach.
Yeah.
What happened next?
I'm on the edge of my seat.
The next day, while at the theater, she encountered a woman who had an extra ticket that she couldn't use.
Oh, wow.
It was as if her imaginal act created a ripple effect, leading to this serendipitous encounter.
These stories are so inspiring.
They are.
Like, they suggest that if we align ourselves with our desires, stay open to possibilities, and trust in the power of our imagination, that amazing things can happen.
God uses these stories to illustrate the power of the creative moment, that flash of time when we imagine things as they ought to be.
Okay.
It's about recognizing those moments of inspiration, those glimpses of a desired reality, and holding on to them with unwavering faith.
So it's like a shift from a passive hoping to an active knowing.
That's right.
Almost.
Yeah, trusting that what we desire is already on its way.
And it's not just about manifesting material things, right? It's about shaping our...
It's about shaping our entire experience of life, creating a reality aligned with our deepest desires and aspirations. Goddard's teachings offer a powerful reminder that we are not passive observers in life.
Right.
We are active creators.
But it sounds like this isn't just a quick fix, right? This is a...
It's not a quick fix, no.
It's a real commitment.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It requires courage, commitment, and a willingness to trust in the unseen forces that are always working in our favor.
It's about stepping into the unknown with a sense of wonder and excitement, knowing that we have the power to create a reality that is beyond our wildest dreams.
And that's a message that can ignite the spark of possibility within each and every one of us.
This deep dive has been a whirlwind of mind-bending concepts and inspiring stories.
Yeah.
But we're not quite done yet, are we?
Not quite.
There's still that intriguing concept of the birth from above.
That's right. We've explored the how of imagining creating reality. But in the final part, we'll delve into the why.
Okay.
What is the ultimate purpose? The deeper meaning behind this incredible power we possess.
Okay, let's take a moment to kind of absorb all that we've discussed, and then we'll be back for the final part of our deep dive.
Sounds good.
Into the world of Neville Goddard and his law and the promise. Okay, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into Neville Goddard's The Law and the Promise. And we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
We talked about how our imagination shapes reality, and even those subtle threads that kind of connect our inner and outer worlds.
Yeah, it's all connected.
But now we're getting to, I guess, the heart of it all, right?
This is the heart of Goddard's teachings, the promise.
Okay.
This is where things get really metaphysical, exploring the deeper meaning behind this power of imagination.
So it's not just about, getting that dream job or finding the perfect partner.
It's bigger than that.
There's a bigger picture here.
Exactly. Goddard believed the ultimate purpose of using our imagination isn't just to manifest material desires, but to awaken to our true spiritual nature. He calls it the birth from above.
Okay, so what does that mean, birth from above?
He describes it as a mystical experience, a spiritual awakening that leads to a realization of our oneness with God.
Okay.
A shift in consciousness that changes everything.
So we're not just talking about...
It's a transformation.
Self-improvement. We're talking about a fundamental shift in...
Yes, a fundamental shift in how we understand
Yeah.
who we are and where we come from.
It's like we've been living in a dream, and this birth from above is about, like, waking up.
It's like snapping out of it.
Yeah.
And seeing reality as it truly is.
And Goddard, like, he had these experiences, right?
He did. He recounts his own mystical experiences that led him to this understanding.
And what were they like?
He describes being taken into this divine society, a gathering of awakened beings, where he encountered the embodiment of infinite might and infinite love.
So that, I'm assuming, changed his whole perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These encounters left him with a deep knowing that God is not some distant entity, but a living presence within each of us. It's not about worshiping an external God, but recognizing the divine spark within.
So it's about tapping into that inner power, that connection to source, to creation or whatever.
Goddard believed that this realization, this remembering of who we truly are, is the key to unlocking our full potential as human beings.
He also talked about David and his son, right?
Yes, he saw that story as an allegory for our own spiritual journey. David represents the awakened self, the one who has realized his connection to the divine. And his son represents the manifestation of our desires, the outward expression of that inner knowing.
So, like, we are all
potential Davids.
Potential Davids.
Capable of achieving great things and fulfilling our purpose, but only if we awaken to that God within.
And the key to that awakening is our imagination.
That's right. It's the tool we use to bridge the gap between our limited human perception and the infinite possibilities that exist within us.
So the power of imagination, the concept of dwelling therein, the mystical experiences, the biblical symbolism.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's a grand tapestry woven together by the thread of Goddard's philosophy. And at the center of that tapestry is the promise of spiritual awakening, the promise of realizing our true nature as expressions of the divine.
And that's a promise that's available to
everyone.
Everyone, not just a
select few. Absolutely. It's not something we have to earn or strive for. It's already within us, waiting to be uncovered.
So then how do we uncover it?
And the tool for uncovering that truth is, you guessed it, our own imagination.
So it's like this whole deep dive has been about exploring the potential that lies within each of us.
That's a great way to put it. It's been a journey of self-discovery, guided by the wisdom of Goddard's words. But it doesn't end here.
Right.
The real work begins when we take these teachings and apply them to our own lives.
Oh, where do we even start?
Start with curiosity. Revisit the source material you provided. Explore Neville Goddard's work further. Pay attention to what resonates with you, what sparks your imagination, what feels exciting to explore.
It's like we've been given this map.
That's a great analogy.
To a vast, uncharted territory.
And as we do so, remember Goddard's powerful words. The world depends entirely on where man is when he makes his observations. And man, being all imagination, must be where he is in imagination.
So our reality is
a reflection of our consciousness.
A reflection of our own consciousness.
By changing our inner world, we can change our outer world.
Wow. Well, I think this deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about and even more to explore.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you.
Yeah, it has. And we hope you've enjoyed diving deep with us into the world of Neville Goddard and The Law and the Promise. So until next time, keep exploring.
Keep imagining.
Keep imagining and keep creating the reality you desire.